I am so tired of always thinking and doing the same things and getting nowhere. What is wrong with me? Why do I keep failing?
Change your life with vision boards.
Vision boards? I can do a vision board. Hi, do you have any vision boards?
Sure thing. Here is a vision board kit.
I will make the best vision board ever. Damn, what the hell? I put all of the good stuff on the vision board just like everyone said. Is there something wrong with me?
Change your life with positive thinking.
I can think positive? Why does trying to think positive make me feel so bad? I will try harder to think positive and say positive things no matter what, then maybe it will sink in? That's it! I was missing the affirmations. I can do affirmations. I am happy and beautiful. I am a millionaire. I am rich and happy. The book said my life would change, but these affirmations aren't working. I feel worse than I did before.
Meditation will change your life. Learn to meditate like a Tibetan monk.
I can do meditation. Seriously? Badass boot camp. I am going to sign up for that course.
You have to try harder. You need to be motivated and be a total badass to be successful. Listen to me, I have the secret to success. I am successful, so you have to be just like me. I am your path to your success. It's the only way. I know lots of famous people, so that means that I know everything.
Affirmations, Tibetan monk badass, positive thinking and vision boards. Got it. Check. Nothing in my life has changed. I am still broke, unhappy and jealous and feel worse than ever. If I can't even get self-help right, clearly there is no helping this self. What is wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong with you. You've been had, you've been took, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. Okay, seriously, I've been waiting like forever to have a reason to say that line. So, oh my goodness, I crack myself up and I probably need to get out of the house more. You aren't doing the self-help positive thinking thing wrong. It isn't the vision board or lack of one, or not meditating for 2 hours like a Tibetan monk that keeps you stuck, feeling hopeless and wrong. You don't have to be more forgiving, beg God for mercy, make sacrifices, or become good to have everything you desire. You are enough, just as you are. Unfortunately, you have just been using tools that aren't tailored for all of your uniqueness. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Stop fighting what's not working consistently and build a new model, custom-made, haute couture, just for you. Your revolution is now. Break the personal development rules and move beyond the self-help trifecta, the positives, the big why, and success mindsets, into this space of true limitless possibilities of your radical self-expertise. Get your digital copy of The Radical Self-Expert, the fastest, simplest 7-step method to discover how to be your true self. Change your life now and be happy today the easy way. You can get it on Kindle, or you can watch it in your web browser, or you can download it to your iPhone with an app. So go get it today. This is Tiffany Jamison Fangela, and I'll see you later.